is happening, you guys? Hello, hello, hello. You guys would not believe what happened exactly at 7 o'clock. You guys will not believe, okay? You would not believe what happened. But listen, what is happening? What is happening? What is happening? Happy Monday. Happy Monday, you guys. Thank you for showing up. It's gonna be amazing. So the craziest thing just happened, like exactly at 7 p.m., my internet just went out. And I was like, is this another technical difficulty? Is this a sign that I should not do this or I should not share the story? Right? So literally the internet went out and I was like, oh my God, another technical difficulty, which means I'm gonna have to, what do you call it? Reschedule again for the second or time and reschedule and or try to use my hotspot or improvise or something, but we are here. So welcome you guys. I'm gonna hit you guys with, because I can't believe I did not hit this, but I'm gonna hit you with the intro. Okay. Amazing, 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 amazing. So, of course, I'm excited to share about tonight. We are talking about, well, I'm talking about rather, a deal that was so perfect on paper. It was like amazing, but ended up, hope you guys can hear me now, ended up losing a lot of money on that deal. So, I'm here to talk about it. We are gonna talk about it. Well, I'm gonna share about it. Let me make sure I have this on and this is working. Da, 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 da. Okay, this is good. Yep. So I'm gonna talk about all those stuff, the lessons. I mean, that is definitely the norm, the lessons, but kind of, I think one of the biggest part I want to get to is overcoming the mental, I wouldn't say mental challenge, but like that mindset, or not even mindset, but the mental strength that it took to get to the other side, or just what was my thought process going through everything. Also, shout out before I even go into that. Shout out to everyone who subscribed to the channel and who's always tuning in to watching our lives. Shout out to everyone who's also in my Skool community. If you guys don't know, I am a capital raiser. I also teach other real estate investors how to raise capital. Recently launched my private debt fund where we partner with persons who have capital to invest in the fund. We take that capital and then we give short-term loans to real estate developers across the US. I am an immigrant from the beautiful island of Jamaica. I got into the private lending space or the capital space or in raising investors capital space, I would say, because the bank told me no. I'm also a real estate investor myself. I also do strategies. I do, what do you call it? I've done flips. I do long-term rentals. I do short-term rentals. I do midterm rentals as well. I've tried different things where I'm like, this is not for me or this is for me. So I've kind of dabbled into a little bit of everything. And then I discovered the whole private lending portion of it. And I just like to tell people about it, and especially the access to investor capital side of it as well. So that's a little bit about me, or why you should trust me based on the information that I am sharing. And this is also just for me too, to record these things and to document these things. It's crazy because I was listening to a podcast today with Hormozy and Chris on the Modern Wisdom podcast. And they were just talking about like in their early journey, they wish they had documented everything, like all the tough things that they went through. They wish they had documented that. So this is my way of also documenting stuff as well. So as much as I'm sharing because I've gone through it. So now I'm sharing my experience with you. I'm also documenting it for me, getting a lot of the stuff out of my head and put it out there. Okay. And also, I think kind of being vulnerable a little bit, I would say. Yeah, I'll put it that I'm being a little bit vulnerable. And also, like, just the opportunity for you guys to like ask questions in terms of like anything where, like based on the entire scenario situation, you guys might even ask me a question that I never thought about. Like, I think last week someone asked me a question about it, and I was like, I never ever think about, excuse me, I didn't even think about that question, which was it was actually a really good question. And I decided to add it in the things that I'm going to talk about today. So yeah, okay, I have that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Let me see what else other update. And of course, like I love to disclose this is that anything that I'm saying on the call, I am also not giving you guys like financial advice, right? I'm not giving you financial advice. Everything is really just from my experience of doing things, my lessons, everything that I'm giving you. Please use that as for educational purposes only. Please and thank you. Go to your professionals, like your professional CPA, your attorney for any legal advice, because I don't want to go to jail. So I don't want anyone to say, like Kalisha said, this is the way to do this. Kalisha said, this is the way to do that. No, I am giving you my experience of how I do things. So yeah, that's the main thing. So of course, before I even go through everything, I am going to share my screen because I had to put my notes together because I know I can go off on a tangent. So I'm going to be sharing my screen about some stuff too and breaking down like the full details about the deal and just the lessons, like dissecting the things that I went through, because also again, there might be some things where I really didn't even think about with that deal that I might have missed. And I love to go back to my old deals and kind of reassess the ones that went bad, just really like what happened and how can I learn from that thing that happened? You know what I'm saying? Like I want to figure out how to learn from that. But yeah, also if you're on or if you're rewatching this later, definitely please hit that subscribe button. Appreciate it a lot. Let me know your thoughts on this with the content. If you want a part 2 of it, you may not, or what else you want me to talk about, like drop that in the comments as well. But yeah, make sure to please and thank you. I appreciate it because when you subscribe, that means you get my notifications or whenever I post a new video, whenever I'm doing something like this. So it will work. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate the love, the support, and the likes I'm trying to do to make sure, like put this whole thing here so you guys know to like and subscribe. These filters, these things are so cool, but I love this one. Okay. Yeah. So that way, like and subscribe to our channel, this channel rather. Okay. So with that being said, I want to go right into it. So that way we finish because I know I can dissect a lot. And if there's something that I miss, again, just drop that in the comments. I'm going to go over it. So with this deal, like everything was really, really perfect, right? Like I'm not going to lie. Like it was a good opportunity. I got this deal. I think it was very last minute too. And someone who I know introduced me to this operator because they were looking for capital. Now, the person who introduced me to the operators, there's nothing against that person. It's not I'm not blaming them. There's no fault of them. They just thought it was a good deal, which it was, and they just thought I could help, which I thought I could. And they made the introduction. It is as simple as that. So they introduced me to this other developer as well. The developer was very experienced. They had the experience, right? They with the size of the project that they had, they've done it before. And when they made the introduction, I think they wanted like 80 something $1,000 for about 6 months. So they wanted 80 something $1,000 for 6 months. And I was like, you know what? Let me run this through underwriting. Let's just verify because they had already acquired the project and was in operation for probably 8 months or a year. I can't remember fully, but they already closed on it. And whenever like I get a scenario like that, I always like to dissect as to why do you really need the money and what has happened and the things that has happened. Why did it happen in the first place? So there was a lot of back and forth because I had to understand the situation. So then that way we could understand the risk that we were taking on and the situation that we're getting ourselves into, right? So anyways, the operator sent us over the deal. It went through my underwriter and everything. My underwriter, which is amazing, right? He vetted the entire thing and it was a really good deal. Like it was an amazing deal. It had a profit margin, I think about 250 to 300,000. That's how good of a deal it was because based on our assessment of what the total project was going to be, the market based on ARV at the lowest value, like it would still make that much money, right? So it had a really, really good cushion. And we're like, this is amazing. Like we verified the debt that was on it. We verified like what the project looked like. We verified the scope of work. We did all of that, right? So we went deep into it. But of course, and we also had the right paperwork. Like listen to me. Listen. I don't play when it comes on to paperwork. Like my paperwork for my investors, they are a non-negotiable. Okay. And that include like a promissory note, a deed or deed of trust or mortgage, where you depends on the state that you're in. It's called different things. A personal guarantee. Oh, and now I'm telling this, and I'm like, oh, there was such a good lesson from this, but I'll get to that part. A personal guarantee was what is mandatory. Being added to the insurance policy was also mandatory and stuff like that. So we had the paperwork, and even for me, when we do stuff like that, it has to have like a wet signature. I don't do e-signatures, and the document has to be notarized. So wet signature and always has to be notarized. That's the main thing for me when doing any loans, because again, I am managing investors' capital, and I wanna, what do you call it? Dot your I's and cross your T's or something like that. Yeah, that thing. I just want to make sure everything is good. But anywho, as I said, we have all of that, and stupid me, I forgot that I need to share my screen so you guys can see the stuff that I'm talking about and follow on it as well. So let's see. Okay, here we go. Perfect. I hope you guys can actually see my screen. Let me make sure. If you can see my screen, if you can drop that in the chat, that would be amazing. If you can see my screen, say a yay, a thumbs up, a yay. I just want to make sure you guys can literally see my screen. Want to make sure you guys can see my screen, because if you can't see my screen, then that would not be cool. Okay? That would not be cool if you guys can't see my screen. So hopefully you guys can. Okay, perfect. All right, so want to make sure you guys can see my screen. Okay, perfect. I just because if you can't see my screen, why am I listening to myself? That would not be cool. Isn't that insane? That would not be cool. Perfect. All right, so here's the thing, right? So as I said, like the deal was amazing. Very, very big renovation project that was happening as well, right? So it's a big reno. It was a really, really strong market. This was in Georgia. It was a really, really strong market. The numbers made sense, as I mentioned before. It has a 300K profit margin, right? Right. And then we had the right paperwork. So overall, we lost about 101,000 and something change. And that includes like the principal. It also includes the interest. It includes the late fees. And I would say it's even more because we spent the attorney fees just to go through the process and foreclose. And that's going to be a crazy story. Like, oh, I can't wait to get to that part. The attorney portion of it, that cost us even a whole lot more money. So kind of like, let me just go through the stuff, right? So here's the first thing. As I said, like I had paperwork. I had everything, right? We had all the stuff that we are supposed to have. They were in place. Like I had the whole thing, right? But hold on. I want to make sure like I'm doing this thing, right? So yeah, I had the right paperwork and everything. Even the lien was recorded. We made sure all of that, right? But here's the thing, like midway through the deal, it's like it was, hey, permits, we still haven't gotten permits. Then they got permit for something, they did it, then they have to wait for another permit, which that just took months. And when I kind of heard the backstory before, permit was also an issue before we even got into the deal, but they really had proof of different stages when they applied for permits and what they did. But this time around, throughout the deal, is like the permits were taking forever. And what I think also happened was that even though they had the money that was used to contribute to the renovation of the project, right? So these investors, they put their own money into the deal, which probably about 100 to 200,000 already into the deal before we came in. Because again, remember, they closed on this deal. When we came in, they already owned the asset. But anyways, permits got just kept delaying and all that stuff. And I remember it's like while they're waiting, I'm like, okay, there's no way the money's just sitting. So here's the thing: when you are an investor, no matter what project you are doing, when your project is just sitting and you're waiting on permits, you still have your holding costs. And your holding costs could be the interest payments to the first lien holder or whoever loaned you the money for the purchase, right? Or give you majority of the money. Like if you took on debt to acquire the asset and you're paying monthly interest, like that is your holding cost. Now you do have some debt or first lien holders where you can delay the interest payment for a certain time, but you need most first lien holders or most hard money lenders or most anyone who's giving you like a large chunk of money and they set their terms where, hey, you have to make monthly interest payment. That could eat up to it. Cause so imagine if you have a monthly interest payment from a short-term loan of like $5,000 a month and your project is just sitting because you're waiting on permits, you can't renovate, you can't do nothing. And if that happens for 3 months straight, that's $15,000 minimum that you have to pay, right? And then you have other stuff because you also have insurance on it, right? So maybe you're also paying insurance. There's electricity, there's taxes, like all those other things that you need to operate the asset while you're in the renovation stage, right? Will eat up the your cash flow. So I think what also happened is that when we gave that money, it was just sitting and it was just eating up the cash flow and the money wasn't being used for what it was supposed to be used for. You know what I'm saying? So all that money went into renovating the asset itself. So it's like by the time they should start making progress, like they're run out of money. So now they're back to square one. So we kind of realize that now we're like, okay, that's definitely going to eat into their profit. It's going to cut it. And then I think it got to like month 4 where I'm like, okay, there hasn't been any major progress or anything. So I'm like, all right, I think there's a high possibility, like really, really high possibility that this loan is going to be very late. Like it is going to be late because again, the project was the same spot when we loaned money on it. And then 4 months it was in the same spot. And this was a 6-month loan. I think it was 6 months. It was a 6 or 8 month loan. Right. And there wasn't anything. So we're like, there's no way, realistically, like there's no way they're gonna finish, do what they're supposed to do, list this and sell it and pay it back in time. So in my head, I'm like, all right, boom, boom, boom. We're gonna start more communication with the operator, right? Because usually like when I do loans, like we do updates like every 30 days. But in this case, we're like, okay, definitely more communication. And then the communication was also started getting really wonky. So like you couldn't get the person on phone, you have to do emails, and then they'll take forever to respond because if there are other stuff that they're in. So it was a lot of back and forth, and there was 2 partners and stuff like that. But we're like, you know what, this loan is gonna be late. Let's start having that conversation. And we had already built in like extensions and all, and what happens if the loan is late on the loan documents and stuff like that. So I kind of saw that coming, and we've had that conversation as well. But got to the point, the loan was now due, right? It was now time for them to pay it back. We did like a 30-day extension that was already built into the contract. That 30-day was coming to an end, and we had to, what do you call this? I have a technical issue. I hope you guys are still seeing my what do you call it, screen, because it's showing that there is a technical issue. I want to make sure that you guys can still see. Okay, yeah, it's still there. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, let's hope that you guys can still see my screen. Oh, okay, so hopefully I'm back. I hope I'm back. I hope I am back. Okay, perfect. So we are back. So that's good. Okay, awesome. The internet decided to do its thing again today. It decided to do a thing. Internet decided to do its thing today, but it will not throw off my flow at all. It will not throw off my flow at all. Okay? Okay, you guys? Not happen. It will not happen at all. I should just try to check on my phone. And then once I do that, we can continue to do this. We can continue to do. Try to check on my phone. All right, perfect. So kind of let me go back and share my screen. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen so then you guys we can continue to talk about the thing. All right, so hopefully, once I do that, we can continue. All right, so I think by now it should be seeing my screen. Okay, so yeah, anyways, going back to what I am talking about. So I hope that you guys can see my screen, right? So kind of going back now, before we cut off, I was talking about when I realized that the loan is gonna be late. So we did at the loan due date, we did a 30-day extension. They paid the extension fee because they couldn't pay the outstanding interest. I'm sorry. They paid the extension fee, and then another 30-day came, and they thought they would have a whole plan figured out, like get a new loan to kind of cash out. So here's where things started going down. So while they were exploring to get a new loan, right? And we discovered this the first time they did an extension, the first lien holder, hear me out. Here's the thing. The first lien holder was going through a bankruptcy. This was the worst part. The first lead holder was going through a bankruptcy, and now we're like, oh my God, this is happening. How do we navigate this, right? So we wanted to get a head start of everything, and in going through the bankruptcy now, we're like, okay, hey, we can come in and we can take over this project. We have one of our partners who can come in and fund, like cash out the first lien, right? So we were willing to take on a loan, about 900 and something $1,000, that would allow us to pay off the first lien and use our own capital to finish the project. But the operators themselves did not want to do that because they're like, we already put almost $200,000 of our own money into the deal, and we don't want to lose. And in my head, and this is where, like, I also, like, when you're going through certain things as an operator, right? You're not thinking straight until you come out of it, because their thought process or thinking was, we already put $150 to $200,000 of our own money into this deal. We don't want to lose our money. But dude, you're already gonna lose, because if your first lien holder filed for bankruptcy and you can't even finish the project, where is that money coming from? And they couldn't get the additional money needed to finish the project, plus pay the interest that they were already behind from that first lien. So we're like, either way, it's going to go up the flames. Let's come in. We're going to take on that debt, use our own money to finish this project. You're just going to have to call it a wash, which in reality, like, think about it. If you personally put 150 to 200,000 of your own money, you're not going to want to give up like that. But that is what happened. And we kind of did a whole back and forth with it. And we realized that the operator was not willing to work with us. So what we did, and when I say us, it was myself and my private investor that I brought into the deal. And when we realized that, okay, they're not going to work with us, then we're like, okay, we're going to have to file for foreclosure, because again, the first lien is going through bankruptcy. Now, you would think that if something like that is happening, the first lien holder or the senior debt holder, the person who used their money for the acquisition and some of the rental, will be like, hey, if we're coming in with a different lender to pay you off, or we can take on the loan, you will get your money back. The first lien holder was like, no, they're not, they're gonna foreclose. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But that was what we were going through. Like, if you guys think about it, like, it was so crazy that um that was the first lien holders thought process. Like, they were not even willing to work with us. They're like, we're going through bankruptcy, we're gonna foreclose, but we're like, hey, we can come in with the money and pay you guys off, so at least you walk away with majority of your funds either way. Now, they did not care. Okay, they did not care at all. Going back to it, right? We went through the legal process. We sent foreclosure notice, and usually, like, you have to wait 30 days after you send the foreclosure notice. Again, this was in Georgia, so the process was really quick. We got in front of attorney, the judge, all those things, and it was ruled in our favor. So the property was deeded to the investor. to my private investor because the loan docs was in their name. So the property was deeded back to them. Now, here's the thing, bro. At one point, I was like, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy? Because, or are these people, these borrowers, delusional? Hear me out for a second. So what has happened was people can't see my chat. Can you guys see? Because I can't see if you guys are talking in the chat, which is very weird. Um, Okay. But yeah, like the borrowers were like so delusional, meaning, how do I put this? They were like, we are not in foreclosure. And we're like, what do you mean you're not in foreclosure? We got to notice that that your first lien is one going through bankruptcy and they're going to foreclose, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, when the property was deeded to us, they're like, we still own the property. We're like, no, you do not. We went to court. We sent you a notice. We waited 30 days. We went through all the legal steps to get this property over to us. Like we had an attorney and all those stuff, right? And still could not. We had an attorney. I keep losing my train of thought. Yeah, we hired a whole attorney and everything. And the operator was like, no, we still own the property. We're like, no, the property was deeded to us. So after we've gone through the entire process, they thought that they still own the property. That was the first thing. Now, here's where it gets crazy. The borrowers, remember, guys, remember, the first lien is going through bankruptcy. The first lien is going through bankruptcy. They're going to lose the asset. They had time frame. They could not find the remaining funds to finish the project to catch up the outstanding interest payment that they owe to the first lien. Like they could not. These borrowers decided to countersue us to say, hey, we did not receive any notice that we are going to foreclose, which is the investor, us. They're saying, hey, we did not receive a notice that you are going to foreclose. And according to the Georgia law, you have to do that. And we had proof that the notice was submitted, right? So with all of that, you guys can't see. Oh, I don't know why you guys can't talk in the chat, but hopefully, I don't know why you guys can't see in the chat or type in the chat, but hopefully we can fix that. But yeah, all of that was happening. So they countersue us, said that we did something I wouldn't say fraudulent, but they're saying that we didn't go through the right process. So we went back into court. Also, guys, during all of this, it's costing money. You have attorney fees, and attorney fees it's billable hours. So it's piling up. And then we had to make the decision of do we want to continue to fight it or just deed the property back to them, because in reality, the lien was still recorded to the property. So there was still security linked to the property. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like when we foreclose, we remove or lien from the property. It was still there in addition to us owning the property. But we're like, let's deed it back to them since they countersue and everything with the court, and we went through that. We have to send it back to them, which was so crazy because I'm like, we went through court in the first place to get it deeded back to them, and now they're going back on their word. So it was very weird. But we're like, you know what? We had to assess the entire situation, and we're like, okay, let's deed the property back to them, and we still had the security on it. During this time, like within probably like a 30-day period, now we did that. They now had to still find a way to get the remaining capital to finish the project and to find a way to catch up their payments with the first lien. So there's a lot of back and forth. I kind of stepped in even more to be like, okay, I'm going to help you to find another lender to come in to take on that debt so you carry the loan. Because here's the thing too, we went to the first lien operator. We're like, hey, what if we even take on the responsibility of the existing debt and catch up that arrears and that payment? And they were like, nope, the loan has to be in the borrower's name. They have to pay, yada, yada, yada. So all that stuff was very wild. But so what I took another approach, because in this case, I am the person in the middle. I'm the one who put the deal together, match the operator with the investor in this deal. So I'm like, okay, let's troubleshoot this. Let me reach out to my connects and then try to find in other like not private money lenders, but other like hard money lenders to come in who take on those loans. And during that process, I discovered that there's a whole market there where you have lenders who only focus on back out loans. They call them, I think, is it called back out loans or bailout loans or something like that, where they look for those type of opportunities where borrowers are almost in default or going through foreclosure, and they come in and take on that existing debt, or come with a new loan, very stricter terms and stuff like that. Of course, more things that you need to qualify and interest rates, but there's a whole market for that. I think it's back out loans or buyout loans. I just can't remember, but there's a whole market for that. So just talking to different lenders, I figured that was a market. I connected the operator with those persons who are doing those type of loans, continue the conversation, and they're like, hey, in order for this to work, we realized that also the operator, would have to bring money to the closing table, or we take on the debt and bring the money to the closing table. The operator did not want to do that at all. And it was, we're not going to do that, Kalisha, because we're going to lose our money. And I was so annoyed because I'm like, I know I'm renting. I hope this makes sense. Because going through all of that, I am like, you are going to lose the money either way. Why do you want us? And their proposal as well was, we come in, take on the debt, use our money to finish the project and pay them first. Hear me out for a second. Hear what I just said? We come in, finish the project, catch up the payments. The loan from the first lien stays in their name. When the property is sold, they get paid first. Make it make sense. Like, make it make sense, right? It just did not make any sense at all. Like, it did not make, I don't know, but it just did not make any sense. And we're like, either way, you're going to lose, right? We're just trying to create a win-win situation here. And we didn't feel comfortable taking on the responsibility of a debt or giving them more money to finish the project because of how they mishandled the capital. So we didn't feel comfortable doing that. So as I mentioned, like, I think I realized I was talking way ahead. But yeah, we went through the legal process for that. The property was deeded back, but we kept our lien. Now, this is where it got crazy. When it clicked to them that they're actually going to lose either way, and the solution that we were proposing made sense. Like, we did so many three-way conversations, late night calls. Everyone, even the persons that were doing the buyout loans, the backout loans, was willing to like make everything work in such a short period of time, because at this point, an auction date was set. We got to a point where an auction date was set, and I think it was a Monday that the auction date was set. So everyone in the process that was helping with the problem solving portion of it, right, knew that we had a very, very tight timeline. And when we get on the phone, we will disclose all those timelines so persons could tell us, the buyout lenders to be like, hey, this is the timeline that we're working with. And most of them were like, we can do it. They were switching around terms and stuff like that. Also, with all of this happening, the market was softening so much where the ARV that we had before was getting lower and lower and lower. And we're like, okay, the longer we take for this, and then by the time we go in, add more money, finish the project, that's another like 4 to 6 months out. We may even get a lower ARV. So now that 300K cushion that we went in with is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it kind of led us to, like, we had to make a decision too, like, which I will disclose, like, starting assessing, like, do we take this loss of 100K, or we kind of go in, finish the project, and then hope that we don't incur an additional cost. So we had GCs to go out to give us quotes, built-in buffers and all that stuff. So we're like, okay, we're already in almost 100 grand. Now we're going to have to put back another 150 to 200 to finish the project. So that now makes our total commitment probably like 250 to 300,000. We're not so confident we'll get the number because the market is changing so much. Again, it's a great area, but the ARV was like getting lower because so many different things that was happening with the market, right? So when they finally decided, okay, what we were proposing with the buyout loans and everything made sense, they decided to work with us probably the Friday or Saturday. At that time, guys, it was too late. Because as I said, the auction was the Monday. And when they wanted to work with us, it was a Friday, which it did not give enough time to move things around. Before I was like, dude, like, if you would agree with us the Monday or the Tuesday when we were having a conversation, we could have met this. Because even the buyout lenders were like, hey, we can get this done by Monday, but we all have to move fast. These are the things that we're going to need. And we're putting all those things in place. But the operators were not working with us. Like, they really was not working with us. And that also shows, like, sometimes when you're in certain situations, like, you're not thinking straight, right? Until you step outside of that. And I'm just going to give them grace to be like, that's exactly what was happening, because they're just thinking only about the money that they have invested and how much they're going to lose. So they're not even thinking about anything else. And it was at this point, you know what I say? It was at this point. It was at this point where we had to make a decision to be like, all right, what are we gonna give up? What are we gonna lose? What are we willing to risk? Like, what are the pros of us doing this? Like, putting more money into the deal. And then even when we got GCs to give us like bids and stuff like that of an estimation of what it's gonna cost, they're telling us, hey, like, there were, like, with the property, there was some water settling somewhere and we didn't know where it was because the foundation was so wrong. They're like, this is just an estimate. And based on what I'm seeing, it could cost you another 50 grand. So it's like every single time it was adding more money and more money and more money about the entire thing. So guess what we decided to do? Take the loss. We had to take the loss. We literally had to take a loss because it was, do we lose 100,000, over 100,000, which was, again, the principal, the interest, the late fees, the attorney fees that we had just taken on? Or do we take on a debt, possibly inject another 150 to 200 into the deal, which now will make our investment about 300,000. That does not include the interest payment for the loan and new debt that we're going to take on, and hold it for the upside and hope that we can sell at the ARV. So you see the difference? Like, do we lose 100 grand or we lose 300,000 plus? Because we weren't sure what the other pop-up issues might have been when it came onto that property at all. We would not have any clue what would happen. So it's like, we would go in, take on this huge debt of this 900,000 debt again, take on this very big responsibility, then inject another 150 to 190,000 per se in it. So now we're all in 150, let's say 150, another 100K, that's 250. Interest payment and the buffer for the unexpected stuff, that's 300,000. So we had to look at it. Do we lose $300,000 and counting and hope that we can sell it, or do we lose $100,000? And sometimes when you do private lending or you're an operator, whatever side or situation that you're in, and if you know that you're going to take a loss, sometimes you really want to save a deal so bad that you don't realize, and you pushing to save it, you're going to lose even more money. And I've been in those situations where my investors, they don't want to lose the money that they already invested, and they're willing to take on the debt that they may end up losing more money. And my job is to say, hey, we're going to lose either way, but we also need to make a decision. How do we want to lose? How much money do we want to lose? Because again, you're in it and you just want to save it. You don't want to lose your money that you already have, but you might go in and still lose even way more money than you anticipated, right? So again, we chose to kind of take that loss and to lose that money, right? And here's the thing that I think I had 4 lessons, but there's way more lessons that this deal has taught me, is that when it comes down to underwriting, like, our underwriting was top notch. Again, like, this was top notch. We did our stuff, right? Is that it's not just about the spread, but you got to account for, one, the size of the project, and like permits and delays, because those things are going to happen, right? And that's why, like, even for now with these, like, it has to have such a strong cash flow, and this really had a strong cash flow. But I guess we could have structured it where, based on the size of the project and stuff like that, we kind of, instead of doing a really short-term loan, we kind of built in more time frame from it. And this too on my end was to communicate early and often, right? So if one of the things that I like to do, and sometimes it's a good and a bad thing, when when I have an investor who wants to be completely passive, I don't like bringing them every single thing. Right. When an issue pops up, I like to solve it first and try to help the operator to solve that problem before I bring it to my investor, because most of the time my investor doesn't have that experience or know what to do. They're not um familiar with real estate investing, so they want to be passive. So if a problem pops up, I like to figure it out, provide solutions, give solutions and all that stuff, and then it works itself out, and after the fact then I could share that, right? But when I realized that it was getting out of hand, I should have started communicating that portion of it. So that's the thing that I would say. Lesson number 3, again, and it's where it kind of solidify why the paperwork that I do on loans are like a non-negotiable, right? Making sure that the lien is recorded to the property, because that is the security if anything should happen. Um, because like if let's say we didn't have the security on the property and they did a deed back and it came to us and we had to deed the property back to them, then we would lose our security if we had to release the lien from the property. And of course, know when to cut your losses. It's a hard pill to swallow, but you gotta learn how to cut that, honestly. Um, and that's gonna be the biggest thing. What another thing, and this I think that should have been my number one lesson, is it also shows me where like I do due diligence on the borrower and the borrower entity, because going after the operator, we realized that they don't own anything and anything else rather that we could have found, and they had other judgment or claims against their entity. So one of the biggest lesson for this one was, for every operator, do a background check to see, do they have any judgment or claims against them? Yeah, in the standard, a lot of times you do bankruptcy and you check credit score and all those things. But I want to see, like, do they owe anyone else money? And does anyone have a UCC1 lien or anything against themselves as an individual or their entity per se? Because that is very, very much important. The part that nobody talks about is like, how do you come back from a loss like that mentally? Like that is like to come back from let me tell you, I was so stressed out. There was so much self-doubt to be like, oh my God, to lose this person's money. I don't want to ask this person to invest with me again. I didn't want to talk about it. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was a fraud, or have imposter syndrome, because I'm like, you lost this money. How can you do this? You cannot do this again. So the self-doubt was there, and I'm like, I started like, be like, did I miss something? Like, what did we do wrong? Like, my brain automatically went to, what did I do wrong? What did the team do wrong? Right. And the guilt is the biggest one. The guilt was really tough, having the tough conversations, knowing like, even though that person was so compassionate and we were working through it together, we were a team. Like with that private investor, amazing. Like we were a team navigating through all of that, and we were relying on each other for different things, and I made sure to always be on top of it a lot of times. But it was heavy. It was definitely heavy, because I think that was the first time I've lost investor capital, and I just felt really responsible, just in general. But that guilt, it was tough. But before I go to my biggest takeaways, like one of the things that also helped was that I had someone to kind of help me to navigate going through that. And I realized that was the importance of having community and having somebody who have gone through something like that to tell you like, hey, this what you're experiencing, this what you're feeling, this loss, it's normal, right? And you're not the first person to ever have gone through something like this, and kind of help with the perspective of, now you got to view this like, how can you become better? It doesn't mean you should stop doing what you're doing, because with this, like, I've had thoughts of be like, I'm not gonna borrow investor capital again. I'm not gonna raise any money again, like all those things. But thank God I have that person who was really helping me to go through that whole thing. And it weighed so heavy on my heart that I had to not even send a text message to the private investor. I had to send a voice note. So I was able to fully communicate how I felt. And I apologized so many times. Um, I apologized a lot, and I felt so bad. And I think they could hear it in my voice, and they were like, and I in the voice note, I remember saying like, I completely understand if you don't want to invest with me again. And they were so compassionate. That private investor was so compassionate, and they were like, hey, like we did everything that we possibly could. We had everything was right. But they gave me grace. They gave me grace, and they were like, this is a part of the business. Like a lot of the things like the we did not anticipate. For example, the first thing going through a bankruptcy, the firstly not wanting to work with us, which was very rare because we were willing to take on the debt and pay them off. Like there's so many things that was happening. And even when I told them about the buyout loans, they didn't even know that that existed. I was like, hey, I found the solution. Everyone got on a call. They're like, Kalisha, I didn't even know this was a thing because I started, going into my network and stuff like that. But I just wanted to share how I felt and accept the responsibility of like, this is my fault. This is my fault because you wouldn't have lost this money if I didn't make the introduction. But again, going back, they were like, we did everything that we could. I did not. And they were like, I knew it was a good deal. They were familiar with the market, the area, everything. They knew it was a good deal. That's why they invested their capital into the deal and the operator, right? But the biggest takeaway is just truly follow your gut, because I remember when this opportunity came, I was like, I don't know. There was this feeling, like there was this gut feeling of, Kalisha, don't do it. Find a way to just not do it. But then it came back from underwriting. I pushed it through underwriting. It came back, and I was like, oh, this is still solid. Like the numbers were so strong, but I still had a gut feeling not to do it, and I still pushed through and do it. Um, so I would say that, like, follow your gut. When you're going through this in community is very important. Like even in my community, Elite Capital Raiser, on our Skool community, I talk about these on our weekly calls as well. Like, and I try to create a space where these operators, whether they're raising money for their personal projects or for other people, like for us to have these conversations, to know how to navigate this, especially the mental part of it. Like I talk about these things, and I create in a space so we can have these conversations, because it's these conversations that when you don't have them, it eats you up inside, and then you stay stuck and you never do the thing and you give up and you go do something else. But imagine if you give up every time something went wrong. Imagine if the bank stopped giving out loans every time someone defaults. Then you wouldn't have a loan to go buy a car or buy a house or buy a business or get an unsecured loan. Like it's just learning from that to be like, okay, this went wrong. I've gone through this situation. This is how I navigated it. What else? What can I put in place so it doesn't happen again? That is like the main thing. What can I put in place so it doesn't happen again? And because of this entire situation, now one of my criteria when vet my due diligence per se is just vetting the individual and all entities relating to that individual to make sure there's no judgment or claim against them. And it's because I went through this situation as well, right? And I think before we come to an end, because it sucks that I can't see the chat. So, which means if you post a question in the chat and I was not able to answer it, I really, really ask that you drop them in the comments, and I promise I will go ahead and answer them. And if we need to do a part 2, we'll do it. But like we again lost the money portion of it. And I think even though the investor lost over $100,000, like we got so much better with underwriting and knowing certain questions of what to ask to really, really have the tough conversation. Even if I'm handling it, like still keep the investor aware of what is happening and just let them know that, hey, this is happening, but this is how I'm navigating it. These are the solutions that I propose, and we're working through it. So at least they're still in the know. But like the biggest hurdle I had to get over was this portion of it, which was the self-doubt and all those things was the biggest thing that I had to figure out and go through during that time. So I would say, like, whatever it is that you are doing, whether you're raising money for yourself or for other people, you can do everything right, but there's always really a 1% chance that something is going to happen. I will never forget that deal, ever. I would never ever forget that deal of what I went through. And I also realized that now that when I'm raising money from other investors, a very common question I get is, Kalisha, have you ever lost money on a deal? And I was confidently say, yes, I lost money on deals. This is what happened. This is everything that we did. This is how we navigated. And some of those conversations, like, oh, you really did everything that you could. Those things happen, right? But also it gives that investor, what I realize, it gives those investor peace of mind to be like, she's gone through that. If it ever happens again, she knows what to do, because again, it comes from having that experience. Is so crucial to know that you've gone through the bad thing that we don't want to go through. But that's how you become better. And that is how it gives investors peace of mind, because you're not a complete newbie and you're not going to disappear when something happens, or you're not going to stop communicating when something happens. You've gone through this tough thing, and it's going to make you a better person with managing their money. So that was definitely an L, but also a win and a lesson for me as well. Again, I'm so sorry that you guys cannot even see. I can't personally see the chat, and you guys can't even type in the chat. I don't know why that is happening. That happened on our last live, and we thought like we fixed it, and I don't know what is happening, but we're gonna have to look into that again. But if you put a question there and I was not able to see it, of course, like, please come back, drop it in the comment section, and I'll answer it. I hope this was very helpful with just me breaking down with everything that happened. I hope you guys take some form of lesson from it as well. And if you have follow-up question, again, drop it in the comments. Everything that I said is all true, not made up. I hope I didn't leave out anything. Again, this was my experience. I'm also documenting this so I can always go back to it. And I just hope that this was also valuable. You could learn something from it, like, it's a definition of every deal is just different. Like, everything is different. Like, again, we did everything that we could, but every deal is different. So thank you guys for tuning in, for coming back, even though we had some technical difficulties with the internet. It just went out and it came back and we lost you, but you guys came back in. So shout out for doing that. So thank you guys for showing up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And let me know what you guys want me to talk about. There's so much things that I could talk about, which I really need to do more of these lives. Did I say lives? Live. I need to do more of those. So hopefully this was helpful. And until next time, like, also, if you guys are not in Skool community, make sure you are there. I have so many resources. I'm going to drop the Skool link in the chat. Make sure you guys join our Skool community as well. I drop like content in there and stuff like that. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Let me drop it in the chat. Okay. I'm trying to find it in the chat, so at least you guys can join in. Hopefully you guys can see that. I don't know what is happening, but hopefully you guys can see that in the chat that I just placed in there as well. So make sure to join our Skool community as well. Like, you can see other content there. We tend to put like some little tips and other valuable content in there as well. But yeah, stay tuned for more stuff. Again, thank you guys for showing up. Have a great Monday and enjoy the rest of you guys' week. Bye, guys.